Now it's time, and this is a wonderful thing to do as well, sipping on scripture with Mr. Shayne Stanfield. Good morning to you, Shayne.
Shayne, good morning, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir.
Today we are sipping on scripture with readings for Monday of the fourth week of Lent, Next Level Faith. I first found today's gospel reading taken from the fourth chapter of John as striking because of my last reflection that I shared with you last week regarding the rejection of Jesus at Nazareth, which was found in Luke. That reflection was about the reaction of the crowd after Jesus said what John begins by stating in today's gospel regarding the return of Jesus to Galilee. For Jesus himself testified that a prophet has no honor in his native place. What is apparent is that this return to Galilee takes place after that violent encounter that Jesus had with the crowd at the synagogue at Nazareth, and John is alluding to the lack of faith that Jesus expects to find upon his return. But that's not what we seem to read here as Jesus returns to Cana in Galilee, where he first turned water into wine during that wedding feast at the very beginning of his public ministry. There Jesus was approached by a royal official who had traveled from Capernaum to ask Jesus to go back with him to heal his son who was near death. And here we have the second thing that I found striking about this reading, and that was the response that Jesus gave to that royal official. Unless you people see signs and wonders, you will not believe. This was striking to me because it seems quite apparent that this royal official did have faith in Jesus as to exactly who he was and what he could do because of the risks that he took and the effort that he made in order to make such a request. This guy was most likely a high-ranking administrative or court official serving under Herod, who would not have otherwise broken rigid social boundaries for this kind of meeting, not to mention traveling about 25 miles each way to do so. In fact, this royal official had such faith in Jesus that he responded to this rather strange statement that Jesus made by essentially doubling down, by insisting that Jesus come with him before his child dies. So then we read that Jesus told the royal official that he could go because his son would live, and that the royal official believed this and left to return to his son. So what was the point of Jesus making this rather strange statement? I think that Jesus was eliciting a next-level faith from this royal official. That's a faith much greater than even the amazing level of faith that he had clearly demonstrated up to that point. Perhaps Jesus was purposely doing this because he could see that the royal official had the capacity to take his faith to that next level, and that the royal official simply needed the inspiration to do so. That could explain the reason for Jesus making such a strange statement, possibly because it was intended to sound at first to the royal official much like it first sounded to me, as if Jesus was telling the man that he didn't have any faith. And this would be why the royal official would have quickly doubled down with such insistence for Jesus to come with him before his child died, as if to demonstrate to Jesus that a lack of faith was certainly not the case. But this is always the case when Jesus wants more from us. And here, Jesus tries to get the royal official to expand upon his belief and trust in the power of Jesus, unlike anyone had demonstrated up to that point. If you take a moment to consider that Jesus was asking for the official to believe in a healing that he could not see take place, then that strange statement that Jesus made suddenly seems to be not so strange. All the accounts of Jesus healing up to that point were personal encounters with the sick and the disabled, where belief in the power of Jesus came about because of the results from those personal encounters could be easily seen. It's no wonder why the royal official asked and then insisted that Jesus go with him to Capernaum to heal his son, because that's all the folks would have known as to how these healings took place. And think of the faithful trust that Jesus was asking from this man. Time was of the essence for his son because he was dying, but he had to leave empty-handed, so to speak, with just a faith that Jesus told him about his son's healing was true. Just think about how agonizing this might have been for the royal official, because we then read that he did not find out that his son was healed until his slaves met him on the way sometime during the following day. I say agonizing because I can relate as a believer of having had nothing but that opportunity for a next-level faith to cling to in the worst of uncertain times. You know, when your life seems to be on fire for one reason or another, and you are begging Christ to show up and perform some miracle that you don't see happening. But trust me when I say that it's only agonizing when you're all too focused on that fire in your life and you are not seeing the fix that you'd like to see. I say this because of what always remains certain in the worst of uncertain times, and that is the gift of next-level faith. that's a gift of certainty that remains even in the worst of uncertain times. And that certainty, the gift of next level faith that we are always being offered, is exactly what we should be focused on at all times. Because just as a royal official found out in the end, Christ keeps his word. And from that, we as believers also have another certainty and hope that everything that truly matters for us will work out for the better in the end.
And it strikes me, Shayne, what's the difference between this royal official and some other royal official? What drove this man to faith? The great gift in his life is the illness of his son.
That's right.
Now, that's hard for us to look at, but that is what drove him to faith. And you can say, he had faith in Jesus. He had desperation, brothers and sisters.
Desperation. Yeah.
In desperation, he had faith. Again, I use this quote often, but because it's true, Abraham Lincoln would say, I find myself often on my knees because I have nowhere else to go. Sometimes the best position to be in is where we have no other option, right?
Yeah, well, we can see this, how many of us have experienced this rock bottom moment,
right.
when we really feel that we're on our last leg, or as you brought up the instance with Abraham Lincoln on his knees.
Yeah.
If you have that on your knees moment and you've got nothing else but to beg for that help, then that's it. And I think that this man was there. He's this royal official, working for Herod, likely. And he's just going to push all that aside. It's like, I don't care if people see me. I don't care if I get ridiculed for seeing this carpenter who, even the Jewish officials don't believe is this so-called Messiah. And he's just taking all that and throwing it to the side, again, like you said, out of desperation, and travels up to 25 miles each way to do so.
And maybe Jesus is asking him that question to say, is this just a desperate move on your part, or do you truly believe?
Yeah.
Getting him to vocalize his belief.
Yeah, and he certainly vocalized it. No, you need to come with me now.
Yeah, right. Come with me. And Jesus said, no, go ahead and go. Your son's going to live. And then he finds out he's healed at that very moment.
And to believe that.
And then his whole family comes into faith. I mean, that's the thing. Oof,
and to believe that. Like I said, walk away empty-handed.
Yep.
He didn't know. He had a trust that the healing took place. So, fantastic.
Excellent scripture sippage this morning, Shayne.
Sippage.
Appreciate that. And with all the high winds, I know you had some trees come down, so hopefully cleanup continues and is no problem.
Yes.
Thanks.